welcome to another episode of Your Life Beyond You podcast, where we are challenging you to intentionally invest into the lives of others. I'm your host, Terrence Campbell, and I am delighted that you took the time to catch today's podcast. Welcome to season 2. Let's go. It's been a long time coming, but I'm so thankful that we are now here. So let's get into it. Listen, I want to remind you, please be sure to subscribe to our podcast on your favorite listening platforms. Now we have added YouTube to the platforms. Let's go. So listen, today we are talking about something pretty interesting, and I am excited to introduce to you this whole idea of Faithful Fridays. Now, what is Faithful Fridays? It is a time that I'm going to share where my faith has been taken to another level as the result of someone else's faithfulness. So I want to get into it, and I want to say, welcome to season 2. Let's go. Man, I'm excited. Let's go. Well, listen, I am just thrilled to be here today. You know, y'all, I am just so excited because today marks the beginning of something pretty cool that I'm excited to bring to you, and that is Faithful Fridays. Now, before I get into it, I want to let you know that the whole idea behind this podcast is that our lives are interconnected, that what we do, what we say, how we live, it impacts others. And what I'm suggesting is that we should do that not by accident, but on purpose. One of my personal favorite mentors of all times, John Maxwell, he says that 90% of the time when we harm someone, we do so unintentionally. Conversely, 90% of the time that we bring value to someone, we do so on purpose and intentionally. So that's the whole idea behind Your Life Beyond You, is to be intentional to use your life to bring value to someone else. So let's get into it. So let me tell you a quick story. Faithful Fridays, by the way, is going to be all about stories. So I had the opportunity, the privilege to go to India in February of 2020. And while there, I had an amazing experience to meet some really great people and to learn a whole lot about myself. You know, when you go on mission trips, you tend to find out a lot about yourself. And one of the things that I discovered about myself is I had a nasty attitude. Now, maybe some people would say, I knew that about you, Terrence, before you went. Oh, man, but self-discovery, it is so key, right? And my bad attitude would come as the result of not having things my way. I don't like to not have things go the way I planned. I'm kind of a calculated person, and I'm kind of structured, and maybe some people would say rigid. I like things to go a certain way. Well, while on this trip, nothing went my way. There were just so many things that just did not work out to my benefit. But it was actually formational for me in order to help me to grow and become a better person. And if you know anything about me, that's kind of my brand. I am a growth guy. I believe in growth. I believe, hey, it doesn't matter where you start, it matters where you finish. And what determines where you finish is where you will begin to grow intentionally. So that's why sometimes we have to get out of our comfort zone. In fact, it's been said that nothing good happens inside of your comfort zone. Growth doesn't happen in the midst of good times. Growth happens when things are difficult. Speaking of which, over the last month and a half, almost 2 months, I've been enduring some very difficult challenges in life. And that's actually what delayed season 2 from being published. But I'm excited that I pressed through and we are here. So back to India. Yeah, so one thing that I also learned while in India was how faithful God is and the importance of trusting Him even when you have no control of the situation. I think sometimes what happens with us is that we have this false sense of control. We think that we can control things when in reality, man, our lives are in God's hands. I went to a what we call affectionately a jungle party. And while at a jungle party, and we called it a jungle party because it was a prayer meeting right in the middle of a jungle. And it was probably the most challenging thing I've ever experienced because all of our pleasantries that we get to enjoy, phone service, bathrooms, just convenience in general, going to bed at a decent hour. I mean, I can go on and on. None of those things existed. Remember, I told you that I had to get out of my comfort zone? Well, this whole time I was out of my comfort zone because I just could not have things the way I wanted it. I like to go to bed kind of early, 9:30, 10 o'clock, 10:30 if I'm pushing it. Well, while in India, I got on average about 3 hours of sleep per day, and I was spent by the time we were out in the jungle having an all night prayer service. Well, at about 4 o'clock that morning, we got ready to head back. And while sitting in the car, I was annoyed. I was tired because we had a 4 hour drive back. Now, if you've never been in Eastern countries, or specifically in India, then you may not have a true appreciation of the kind of hazardous driving or road conditions that you're exposed to. I mean, people drive pretty aggressive. I mean, imagine, I tell people this often when I tell this story. Imagine if you saw someone on the road driving like an absolute maniac. They are weaving in and out of lanes and they are stopping and speeding and zipping and passing and near misses and all of that. Multiply it times 100 and get in the car with that individual. That's what it was like. Woo! Riding in India. So we have a 4 hour trip back to our resting place. I had already made up in my mind, I don't care how tired I wasn't going to sleep. Why? Because the people drive like maniacs, right? That's not a slight against my brothers and sisters in India by any means. So if any of you see this, I don't mean any harm. And perhaps some of you would even admit to it, be like, yes, brother, you're absolutely right. But I decided I wasn't going to go to sleep. I was going to stay awake. And if I was going to die in a car accident in India, I was going to see it coming. Well, sitting in the back seat, a good friend of ours, a brother by the name of Shaju, who was so gracious. He and his brother Santosh actually helped us get accommodated and acclimated different places where we were going. I mean, they took such good care of us. I actually have a picture of Shaju, and he's the one where there's the red arrow pointing there. And of course, the people that I went with, Michael Atmar, Peyton, and Jordan, and our baby sister Haley, as we so affectionately referred to her as. We decided we were all gonna go out there and experience India together. And it was, I mean, we went to India as friends and we came back as family. I mean, truly an amazing experience. But anyhow, Shaju, he taught me something. Remember, I'm talking today about faithful Fridays. What Shaju taught me was how to trust God, even in the midst of difficult times. You see, while we were on our way back from the jungle party, the all night prayer service, Shaju got into the back of this van type of vehicle and he went to sleep. I mean, no seatbelt. He was laid out. I mean, laid all the way out in the back seat. I mean, he was all the way out. And I marveled. I said, how in the world can this man sleep in the midst of all the zipping and the speeding and the in and out of lanes? I mean, really some really scary driving. And he back there snoring. And I was reminded of a story in the scripture where Jesus told his disciples, hey, let's go to the other side. And while they were on this boat on their way to the other side, the Bible says that a storm arose, and to the point to where the ship started to be tossed and driven by the wind, and even to the point to where now water began to fill the boat, and the disciples in their panic woke Jesus up and said, Jesus, don't you care that we perish? And then Jesus goes and rebukes the wind, and he tells them this. He says, oh, you of little faith. And I don't know about you, but that story has always kind of confused me, because what did Jesus expect us to do? I mean, what was he looking for? I mean, here is a situation. These guys were fishermen. These guys were accustomed to storms and handling themselves on the water. So this thing had to have been truly a fierce storm. So why did Jesus ask them the question or make the statement, oh, you of little faith? Well, I believe it had something to do with the fact that Jesus said, let us go to the other side. The fact that what he was teaching us there is, because I said, let's go to the other side, no matter what you're going to encounter along the way, you're going to make it to the other side. And I saw that illustrated in a very poignant picture and experience through Shaju. Shaju knew that we had a destination, and he decided he was going to get in the back seat and sleep. I was like, wow. Because, let's be honest, that there wasn't a whole lot more that he could do. That if we were not going to make it, then the reality was that because he wasn't driving, there was very little he could do about it. And I want to share that word of encouragement with each of us as we are going through this very difficult, odd season of life and very turbulent. Maybe you feel like you have been in that car like I was, just feeling all tossed and driven, all discombobulated, and just really uncertain of how things are going to turn out. But I want to invite you that are listening, you that are watching, I want to invite you today to put your trust, your faith in the Lord. That you say, God, I ask for your help. I ask that you would be with us. I ask that you would keep us, and trust him with the outcome. And of course, that's easier said than done. And I believe that happens. We can grow to that place where we trust God with our very lives. What would our lives look like when we trust him with everything? I mean, man, we wouldn't have to worry about what will happen about our jobs, or what are we going to do about our children's education? How are we going to pay for their college, or how are we going to pay off our home mortgage? The list can go on and on of all the things that we could feel like we need to worry about, that we need to sit awake and make sure that things go the way they need to go. I want to encourage us today to trust him. And if that's not where you are today, that's all right. But I invite you to set out on the journey to grow to the point to where you trust God with your very life. Well, family, I have had a wonderful time with you today. I am excited for this first installment of Faithful Fridays, and and the beginning of season 2, where we have recorded. This is our 14th episode. And so excited. Thank you for all of your continued support. And we are just grateful for the opportunity to just begin to serve and bring value to you. And we hope that we have done that today. Well, as always, I would be remiss if I didn't take the time to thank our friends and partners of Growing Faith. You help to make this possible. Hey, you have been listening to and or watching Your Life Beyond You podcast.